Good morning everybody. Today is November 3rd, 2017. As you can probably tell from the background, I am back in California for another bite at Brian's layout. Before we get stuck in, let's take a look and see what projects I have in store. I was expecting that this area here would be my first order of business or my main project for this trip, but the piece of backdrop necessary is still missing. It should be arriving sometime during my stint here, so maybe I'll be able to work on this for the second half of the trip. James wants me to start in this area, get this looking presentable, and blend in the work I did in the foreground with what was done before me in the background. And then once this area has been brought up to the same standard as what I've been doing in the front, he wants me to gradually work around, add a second layer of detail, which will include a lot more trees, and gradually work around the room over the same area that I did last time. And then the plan is that by the time I get back all the way around to here, this backdrop should be installed and I will be able to continue into this section of the layout here. Well, I'm back for work on the morning of day 2. Yesterday I got some reasonable progress on this area. I tore out a section of scenery here and put a rock cut in because it just wasn't working otherwise. It was just a really steep, well, nearly vertical earth bank, which just didn't look right. I did the culverts. Another area I basically had to go backwards before I could go forwards. I put some rocks in around it. A lot of small areas of rock work. I cut the road down, put the banks in on the rest of the tracks. I also got the 3 pieces of track running through it all painted. Had to do some regrading work in here because it just didn't line up right. I was hoping to get that back track ballasted so I could work forward and get it buried in trees, but I ran out of time, and also I want to run the train down it and check that it's working fine before I do that. So anyway, I'm going to turn the camera off and I am going to get to work. I will check in with you again tomorrow. Well, here I am arriving for work on day 3. If we look at this area, I've actually got quite a lot done. Yesterday I finished painting all the new rock work, the culverts, got all the ground cover done in this area. I ballasted that back track, planted probably 100 trees. I ballasted the front track, and then I moved into the area that I worked on the first time I was here. I planted probably another 200 more trees in this area. I got this bridge installed. I also weathered this black bridge and the other one just like it over there. Right, let's go around the other side of the peninsula. Right, here are these 2 bridges on the upper branch line. I think my first order of business is to get the branch line laid across these 2 bridges and round through this cut. Connected up here. I will probably remove this clump of trees just to give me easier access. It'll take a few minutes to put them back later. And then I will move into this area plant a whole load more trees in here. I want to supplement these mid-sized trees with a few larger ones and a whole load of small, or 3 to 4 inch trees. Only I don't think I have enough left. Well, it's Monday morning, so 3 days in. Yesterday I got the marsh area detailed. I don't particularly like the aspen trees, but they asked for them. They specifically requested that I install a few in this marsh area. I used a lot of grass tufts from Nock and other manufacturers, and a lot of the reeds are cut from paintbrushes. Oh, I got the branch line track in and ballasted from this turnout all the way through the trees, across that bridge, around the back of that mountain, and across that bridge. The black one, I mean. I did a few more little details in this area. Let me go around the other side of the peninsula. I planted a few more trees in this area, filled them in on all the ledges. There's still a few that have toothpicks stuck in them to hold them upright. Let's get rid of those. What I do, wherever a tree doesn't want to sit upright, I jam a toothpick in the hole while the glue sets, and they just come around and pull them out later. This one actually required 2 toothpicks because the hole was loose. And if a little bit of wood breaks off and stays behind, it really doesn't matter, because it's an appropriate colour that it will just blend in. So I bought 408 trees with me, and I planted all but 10 of them. Also, a couple of these trees here I replaced with larger ones. I was leaning a little bit. Add a few hero trees. I don't know where I heard that phrase before, but it seems a good one. So in this area of the layout, there are over 1,000 trees planted already. Well, it's now Tuesday morning, so we're 4 days in. Yesterday, one of my major projects was to do the area around the passenger station. Well, to start that area anyway. I poured the platform out of plaster. I put a strip wood edging, still has to be stained, and also cut into reasonable lengths, maybe 16-foot lengths or something like that. And also at the back I temporarily attached other strip wood the right height to match the former. Put it down with double-sided tape so I could easily remove it afterwards. I put the driveway in behind it, and as of this morning it's still not quite dry. Still got to do some more ground cover in the area, and of course paint the platform. This hole in the middle is for the lighting wires for the station. There's another structure that goes in here. Put a concrete base for it. And this grade crossing took forever to get it to fit. For one thing, the planks are too thick, so I had to sand them down. And I also had to cut a rebate in the back where it would otherwise foul the spikes. Well, good morning everybody. I'm just arriving at work again. I've lost track of the day count, but I think this morning is Wednesday. Last night I started working on the inside of this tunnel bore because the boss decided it would be nice to have a detailed tunnel interior, and that was a good place to put it. It's a real pain getting the plaster to stick upside down. Anyway, also yesterday I continued in this area. I'm not sure how much of this I had done the day before. I know I added some bits in this area. I think maybe the road was in, but the ground cover around it wasn't. I'm not sure whether I also painted the platform yesterday or the day before, but I worked in the engine terminal area. I got all that ground cover done. Well, let's back up a bit. Before I could do the ground cover, I had to make foundations for all the structures. This is going to be a wash rack eventually, but we're going to buy the details instead of making them. I went about as far as here with weed lines where the tracks were further apart. Of course, there was no black cinder ballast available, so I used the darkest colour that I could find, and I'm just going to wash some very thin paint on it, which hopefully won't actually stain the tyres because it won't stick to the plastic if it's that thin. Anyway, that's a project for probably a couple of days away. I need to let this get really hard first. Also, I need to let this area dry out a little bit more before I put any moisture down here, or rather before I add any more moisture, because it's already too wet. Well, it's Thursday morning. It's still quite early. It's not even 7 o'clock. Yesterday I got my tunnel interior finished. It was a lot of fun ballasting in there where I could neither see nor reach, but I think it looks okay. Also yesterday I worked on this area. I added some rock outcrops above the back track just so it doesn't look like it's cut off straight. I filled in that back edge all the way along as well, so we'll just put ground cover over that and be able to plant a tree line just to blend in with the backdrop a little bit better. I've still got to do all the dry brushing on these top rock outcrops, which is why the colours don't match yet, and then putting all the grass and weeds in the grooves of the sandstone. That will probably take the rest of the day, maybe even into tomorrow as well, because that's a big job. I'm not going to be able to sprinkle it. I'm going to have to place it one tuft at a time. It's going to be tedious. I'm not really looking forward to that, but it'll be a big improvement. Oh, I planted a row of aspen trees down the back of the passenger station per suggestion, and I think they look okay. The weathering on the platform didn't turn out quite the way I envisaged, so I'm going to have another go at that later. That's all for this morning's update. Let's get to work. Good morning. Today is Friday, which means my trip is exactly half over. I've already been working 7 days and I have 7 more days. So let's go around and recap on what I've been able to accomplish so far. If you recall, I started off by building this area here in the marshes, and then I gradually worked my way around the room, making a second pass on all the areas that I had previously worked on. I added about 400 more trees in this area. I think the effect looks a lot better now, even though more are still required. And then if I step around to the other side of the peninsula, I started working down this wall here. I installed this building, finished this area. I worked on the station area. Unfortunately, there's some structures put temporarily here because I had to tear apart this area to mask it off. Well, I say tear apart. There were 4 structures which were not glued in place, so I just moved them so I don't damage them. I spent all of yesterday, about 12 hours, adding the buffalo grass tufts along the majority of the sandstone wall. I also experimented with a couple of areas with adding ground foam. I'm going to have to do that to the rest of it. But I think I'm going to add a couple of more rock outcrops, one here and one down here, where I have a little bit more space available just to break it up a bit more. I think it would look better. That's why there's no grass tufts in those areas. I'll just have to make a paper shield so I don't get plaster on what I've already finished. That's what I've done in the first week. The second week will be completely different. Well, it's Saturday morning. Yesterday I finished putting the buffalo grass tufts on this end of the rock wall, and if I pan around quickly, I also did that end as well, but I did that later in the day. Main task for yesterday was I got the front edge rocks in and some retaining walls as well, all the way along the front edge, or rather most of the way along the front edge. I didn't get the other end done completely. That's a different project for a different day. When the other guys ballasted the track along here, they realigned it slightly, and this rock wall is now fouling because they moved the track further back. They didn't get all the kinks out as they were supposed to. If you look along here, there's one monster kink down there. Oh well, anyway, the owner will be here in a couple of hours today, so I need to get these front rocks finished, the tape gone, the track cleaned, so he can run some drains. So I will put the camera down and get to work, and I will check in with you again tomorrow. Well, it's Sunday morning now. Didn't get much done yesterday, mainly because there was a train show in Roseville, and we all went to that instead. I only put in about 7.5 hours yesterday instead of the normal 12. Anyway, in the morning I got the ground cover done along this front strip. Well, finished painting the rocks first, then did the ground cover. Had to touch up all the ballast because it tends to get wrecked when doing nearby scenery. So I got that done in the morning because I thought the owner was coming to take a look, but he didn't get here. He's planning on getting here today, so I didn't want to tear anything apart before he got here. I also started work on the trestle to go across here. This is going to be a real pain to do because it's on a grade and a curve, but the curve's not regular, and I've got to basically build it in situ. I started working on some of the bents yesterday. Well, they're actually bought, ready built, but I've got to make each one fit and get some foundations in as well. I've got the footings in for the timber trestle that I'm building across the back, and basic rock carvings done. I'm going to get all the dry brushing done this morning and the ground cover in, and then I'll be able to build the trestle over the top of it, put the track back, and then I'll work forward and do the steel trestle in front of it. The plans change. They want to take the front trestle all the way to this truss bridge and put a lake under it. I don't know whether it's going to look good, but that's what they want now. Of course, I'm going to have to completely redo this bridge abutment. The retaining wall castings that I'm using are not deep enough to go all the way to the bottom. It wasn't going to be a problem because there was going to be rocks and dirt underneath it, but now it has to go all the way down to the foam. And of course that pillar has to be 4-sided instead of 3. So I'm going to have to tear that apart and redo that, and that was a lengthy job. Also, I've had to spend hours building a whole load more micro-engineering trestle parts to double the length of it. So let me get on with this, and I will check in with you again tomorrow. Good morning everyone. It's Tuesday today, which means I only have 3 days left before I have to fly home. There's still a lot of things that I want to accomplish in that time, more than I'm going to be able to. So let me turn the camera around and go through what I'm going to try to get done in those last 3 days. Well, probably the most obvious thing is the rough fascia panels that are being installed around the layout. This missing piece has already been cut. If we go all the way around, I've got to trim them to shape and then touch up the scenery along the front edge. So that's one major task. The other area of the layout that I'm going to be working on is right around the other side. I've now finished this wood trestle at the back. Last thing I did last night before I left was to glue the deck down, or glue the bridge track down. That's why there's weights up there. I've got a 5-foot long steel trestle to come along the front, which I'm working on. It will connect up to the truss bridge, which I've taken out here. So I need to get that finished. I've got all the micro-engineering towers and spans already sub-assembled. And then I want to get this area roughed in. Get the rough shape of the mountain fleshed out, and I'm coming as far as this stream, and I am meeting the other guy who is coming the other way from this corner, and we're going to meet at the stream. Well, it's Thursday morning, the penultimate day of the trip. I started cutting into the fascia yesterday. Of course, the disadvantage with doing the scenery before the fascia is that I now have to finish all the way around the edges. So I need a little bit more plaster touch up, some sculpture mould and ground cover. But that's not a big deal. It won't take long. I'm going to get all the fascia cut and then go round quickly, one pass only. So that's one task that I have to finish. And the other one, of course, is the long steel trestle that I've been working on in the other corner. Let's go around there. This trestle here, almost done. I glued the foundations in permanently last night. I attached the track. What I've got to do today is I've got to take it out, paint it, install the bridge shoes, and then I've got to put it back in and get the abutment in this end and get it hooked up to the rest of the track so that it can be run. It won't be permanently installed because I don't have enough time on this trip to finish all the scenery underneath it. So that'll be a project for next trip. As long as the guy can run trains, that's the specification I've been given. So it's about 10 to 7. I need to turn the camera off and get busy. I will talk to you again tomorrow. Well, I'm just arriving for work on my last work day of the trip. It's Thursday morning. My flight leaves tomorrow. Yesterday I worked in 2 areas. I started roughing in the mountain in this location, and I got this bridge installed. I got it painted, the bridge shoes attached, installed it, and did the abutment, and I connected up the track to the main line. I haven't run a train across it yet, but I will do that today. I will also continue working on this mountain today. I doubt if I'll get any plaster on it. My goal is just to get the basic shape roughed in. I'm also working in this area, getting the fascia tied in to the 3D landscape all the way from here around to the bridge on the branch line. I have to do all the dry brushing on the rock additions and then do the ground cover, and then that will be complete. Here I am climbing the stairs on Thursday evening. I will be flying out tomorrow morning, so let's see what's changed. Most noticeable being that the last peninsula has been installed. I didn't really get anything done in this area today. Been doing a whole lot of little bits and pieces. We arranged a whole lot of town buildings up here. Well, my main task today was to finish blending in my scenery with the fascia, which I have done all the way from here around the corner, the length of the room, and then around the end of this aisle, and a short way back down the other side. So it's somewhere in the region of 30 feet that I finished today. James has asked me to do some videos of trains running through the finished scenery areas, so that's what I'm going to do this evening.